Bonjour à tous, bienvenue sur ce live Google for Startup France. J'accueille aujourd'hui Mehdi de l'équipe Deepmind. Salut Mehdi,
Hello Hugo, bonjour à tous.
tu vas bien?
Très bien, merci et toi?
Écoute, tout va très bien. Sous la pluie actuellement pour ceux qui nous regarderont en replay aujourd'hui. Je crois que toute la France et un peu partout, on est sous la même météo. Pour faire un petit rappel du coup sur qu'est-ce que cette chaîne YouTube déjà, si vous tombez ici par hasard, vous êtes du coup sur la chaîne de Google for Startup France dans le programme qu'on appelle les Startup School. Google for Startup, on accompagne du coup toutes les startups françaises dans leur croissance à travers différents programmes. On a des programmes, notamment celui-ci, du coup la Startup School, en live sur YouTube, qui vous permet du coup de vous former sur différentes thématiques. Généralement, voilà, des thématiques qui sont liées au marketing digital. On va vous former sur des variables d'analytics avec de la data, avec Google Analytics notamment, de l'acquisition avec Google Ads, ou encore sur des variables telles le SEO, l'A/B testing, etc. On a un autre programme qui s'appelle la Start Academy. On vous a mis un petit lien en description où là, on va sélectionner 20 startups par mois et on va les accompagner dans un programme qui est plus restrictif, plus fermé et qui va permettre plus d'échanges. Donc, on est encore sur ces mêmes variables, data, analytics et SEO, et ça va nous permettre d'accompagner ces startups durant un mois durant différents niveaux, niveau 1, niveau 2, niveau 3, histoire de grandir tous ensemble et vous accompagner du coup sur tous ces outils. Et aujourd'hui, on est sur un format qui est un peu particulier. On accueille, du coup, on a la chance d'avoir Mehdi d'une autre équipe de Deepmind. Mehdi, du coup, va pouvoir venir nous parler de son expérience. Il a bossé de nombreuses années, du coup, chez Google dans différentes équipes, notamment dans le cloud, avant, du coup, de rejoindre Deepmind, dans lequel, du coup, Mehdi, t'es product manager et tu gères du coup une équipe de recherche. On va parler notamment du coup d'intelligence artificielle et de machine learning. Est-ce que déjà dans un premier temps tu peux te présenter?
Oui, bien sûr. Merci Hugo pour l'intro. Merci aussi pour l'invitation à partager un petit peu l'expérience d'une équipe de produits dans une organisation de recherche. Moi, c'est Mehdi. Je dirige l'équipe des PM de Deepmind. J'ai passé les 8-9 dernières années chez Google, d'abord dans l'équipe entreprise qui est devenue cloud, puis après l'équipe qui s'occupait des pays émergents. Et je suis arrivé chez Deepmind il y a 4-5 ans pour aider à monter l'équipe produit de Deepmind. Et je vais vous expliquer un petit peu qu'est-ce qu'on fait chez Deepmind, un labo d'IA qui est dans Alphabet Google. Ensuite, quel est le rôle d'un PM, d'un product manager qui est associé à une équipe de recherche. Et ensuite, je vous présenterai certains des projets appliqués qu'on a fait avec des BU Google ou en solo pour vous aider un petit peu à comprendre notre travail, la façon dont on l'approche et les bénéfices que l'IA peut apporter à des produits.
Top. Pour ceux qui sont en live avec nous, n'hésitez pas, vous avez le chat pour poser des questions. Mehdi répondra, j'afficherai les questions directement du coup sur l'écran. Et puis à la fin, bien sûr, il y aura une petite session de questions et réponses pour ceux qui en ont. Je te laisse la main, Mehdi, et je suis dans le coin si besoin.
Super, merci Hugo. Alors, avant de commencer, déjà, je voulais vous faire ce petit disclaimer que tout le contenu et les idées qui sont dans cette présentation sont les miennes et n'engagent en rien mon employeur actuel ou mes employeurs précédents, Google, DeepMind, etc. Je vais faire une partie de cette présentation en anglais parce que certains des mots, je suis plus habitué à les utiliser en anglais. Mais pour les questions-réponses et tout, on pourra toujours parler en français et puis je mettrai quelques mots de français par-ci, par-là. Donc voilà, moi c'est Mehdi, je dirige l'équipe des produits chez Deepmind. Je vais vous partager un petit peu de background sur Deepmind avec une vue du projet, de tous les projets que les équipes de recherche font. Ensuite, on parlera de la fonction produit et on regardera comment est-ce qu'on on utilise cette recherche pour créer et développer de nouvelles applications dans le monde réel. Ok, je vais switcher en anglais du coup. Alors, let's start by giving you an overview of our environment at Deepmind. PMs, product managers, need to understand the environment they operate in, given the highly collaborative nature of our role. And we will touch on the importance of collaboration for PMs later on. So in 2009, Mehdi Ghissassi and Shane Legg met at UCL, University of Central London, during their PhDs, and they co-founded Deepmind with the goal of advancing AI. They thought of Deepmind as an Apollo program effort to advance AI as quickly as possible. And they were trying to bring together the world's greatest scientists and engineers, give them all the resources they require, computing power, a lot of other things, in order to see how much progress could be made towards solving AI. Deepmind had an ambitious roadmap back then, which is still carrying out today. In 2014, Deepmind joined forces with Google. The founders wanted to organize scientific endeavors in a new way. Demis summarizes it as trying to fuse together the best of academia, this blue sky thinking and ambitious thinking that you get from the best places in academia, with the best from the startup world, focus, energy, and pace that you get at the world's best startups. The intuition behind this is that those two types of environments are not mutually exclusive, but that one could advance science faster if they could combine the best from both of these inspiring worlds. Deepmind's mission is articulated around two steps. The first one is to fundamentally solve intelligence, which means understand what intelligence is and recreate it artificially. The step two is a belief that if you do step one in a general enough way, then step two naturally follows. We should be able to use this technology to solve almost everything else. More prosaically, Deepmind's plan to do this is by building the world's first general-purpose learning system. The world's first general-purpose learning system. I'm repeating that because to have you think about what do those words actually mean. So there are two main approaches to building AI, or two schools of thought. In the early days of AI, the main approach is what's called expert systems, or good old-fashioned AI, GoFi, or traditional AI. So there you have teams of programmers and researchers who hard code knowledge in the form of rules that they express in complex databases. So you can imagine this list of thousands of if-then rules trying to encapsulate the solution to whatever problem the program is supposed to be dealing with. You can already see that the issue with these types of systems is that they can't deal with the unexpected. These approaches can't think for themselves. They can't deal with anything they were not prepared for. What this means is that they are limited to solutions that we can express as the programmers. The programmers need to understand in minute details what the problem is. These systems were inspired by logic systems and logic theory. Deep Blue, beating Kasparov, is probably the most famous expert system. If we now compare this to modern-day learning systems, which is one of the reasons behind the advent of AI in the last few years, these systems learn directly from data and from first principles. They are not pre-programmed with solutions. They have to figure out solutions for themselves. If we can generalize these systems, they can solve tasks we can't ourselves. That's the promise of these systems. They can go beyond human knowledge, beyond knowledge that we have ourselves in all sorts of interesting domains. Learning systems are inspired and informed by neuroscience and how our brains work. They're inspired by the brain, while expert systems are inspired by logic. AlphaGo, which we'll touch on later, is maybe the most famous learning system. So learning systems. At Deepmind, we think about intelligence in the framework of reinforcement learning, or RL. Agents learn about the world through trial and error. We start with the agent system. The agent finds itself in some kind of environment. That can be the real world, in which case an agent is a robot, or it could be a game or a simulation where the agent is an avatar. The agent was given a goal by the designers to achieve in this environment. The agent only interacts with the environment in two ways. First, through its sensory apparatus, and we normally use vision, but you could use touch or audition or other modalities. So you get these observations of the environment through your sensors. The observations also include rewards from the environment for doing the right things. The first job of the agent is to build up a model of the world out there. It has to figure out a statistical model of the environment it finds itself in and the linkages in that environment. Once it has a model of the world, which it is continually updating as it interacts with the world, the second job is to pick the right action to take. At any moment in time, the agent system might have a whole array of actions available to it. It has to take the best action, the one that takes it closest to achieving its goal at that moment in time. If the model of the world is very good, it can also hypothesize in its mind what the consequence of making some actions will be and what the likely changes in the environment will be. So you can think of this system in a cycle, right? The agent, once it runs out of thinking time, outputs the best action it found so far. That action gets executed, and then that may drive a new change in the environment, which drives a new observation, and then the agent updates its model of the world, selects a new action. Through a sophisticated process of trials and errors, the agent eventually reaches its goals. Very complex technical challenges need to be solved for this, and this is how the brain works. The dopamine system implements a form of RL using this system of reinforcement based on rewards. So at Deepmind, we've been building AI systems for video games. Games would be the best ground for developing AI, mostly because robotics is tricky as a development platform, given you spend most of your time on hardware and infrastructure. So it's much better to test the sophistication of the AI system in games. I'll show you some of the research team's breakthroughs. So the first thing the team at Deepmind worked on was the Atari 2600 from the 80s. It has a big diversity of games, and it tested the first system in 2013 on these games. The first system was the agent called DQN, which only gets the pixels as raw inputs, the values of the colors on the screen. It isn't told anything else about the game. It basically is told, here is a stream of numbers, 30,000 numbers per frame, and the goal is to maximize the score. The agent needs to learn everything about the game from scratch. And then the final challenge that the team added to themselves is this notion of generality. They wanted one agent to play all the games out of the box. So this game is called Breakout, and you control the pad at the bottom, and then you need to bounce the back to knock out all the bricks. You can't let that ball pass the pad or you lose a life, and you have 5 lives. So this is what it looks like in the first 100 games. As you can see, the agent is starting to get what the game is about, but it's still a bit clumsy. Now at 300, after playing 300 games, it gets to human level. The team left the agent playing a bit more, and you'll see that it found this optimal strategy, which is an amazing solution to the problem. It's quite low risk, as you will see in a bit, that the ball can't go below the paddle, and high reward because it knocks in so many touches. It knocks so many bricks in just one touch. This is one of those aha moments when the research team was able to witness, where AI has found solutions to problems that humans hadn't thought of before. The next exciting moment happened in 2016 with AlphaGo. So we won't go into full details on this, and many of you might be already familiar with the story. 200 million people around the world actually watched this event, and there is a full-length documentary available on Netflix and Amazon telling this story. But the key idea is that Go, an overwhelmingly complex ancient Chinese board game, was thought to be decades away from an AI system defeating a human professional. However, by combining deep reinforcement learning techniques with Monte Carlo tree search and making use of a policy and value network to simplify the depth and breadth of the search space, AlphaGo was able to train on human data and then through self-play reinforcement learning to ultimately defeat 18-time world champion Lee Sedol in a televised match. Experts agreed that this happened a decade before it was supposed to. I wanted also to talk to you about AlphaFold, which is a machine learning system that predicts the structure of a protein from its amino acid sequence. AlphaFold predicts a protein's shape at very high accuracy, often rivaling the accuracy of costly and time-consuming experimental methods. Here you can see how Deepmind entering the CASP competition led to the problem of protein solving being thought as solved. And solving protein folding can have incredible benefits to humanity. Imagine if you were able to understand disease, create more efficient drugs, and synthesize proteins. It would further accelerate scientific discovery in life sciences. So this is just an idea of the challenges that humans are facing and that perhaps new knowledge can help them solve. So now that you have an understanding of the unique environment in which we operate, let's turn our attention to product management. I'll try to distill some of the key learnings and best practices we have developed and continue to develop day in, day out as we incubate new product opportunities. As mentioned earlier, the second step of the Deepmind mission focuses on bringing the benefits of AI to the world. We are privileged to partner with many Google teams. This gives us the opportunity to apply our research breakthroughs onto immediate real-world challenges, from which we can feed the learnings back into our core research mission. It's a wonderful flywheel effect to have. Sundar Pichai, Alphabet and Google CEO, highlighted in his 2020 sustainability update our work in the energy saving space, and we'll touch on it a bit more. The adaptive control platform is one of our first products, and it really helped us to start to think about AI ML product management. So there we started with the Google Data Centers team and improved cooling by 30%. It's now a fully autonomous system, and here the team solved for high levels of complexity. So imagine a system with 10 different knobs that you can turn. Each has 10 different settings. This is a lot simpler than a standard industrial system. Even with this system, you have 10 at the power of 10, or 10 billion possible combinations. Humans aren't good at solving that level of complexity, but the good news is that artificial intelligence is. So imagine that you're a PM working at Deepmind or your favorite research lab. You're part of this unique culture that brings together academia and startups. A researcher comes to you saying, my team and I have developed this incredible breakthrough that uses RL to master complex tasks and gets to superhuman level in record time. So what do you do? Where do you start? How do you approach bringing the benefits of this new technology to the world? That's the main tasks that we have as product managers in a research organization. So at Google, I heard multiple people say, start with or focus on the user and everything else will follow. In the specific aim of PMs working research, I realized very quickly that we usually do not know beforehand who the user is, let alone what the product can be. And so we only know what the researcher shared with us after they discovered some new algorithm. That definitely makes our roles uncomfortably exciting. When our wonderful researchers share their amazing news, there is so much that my PM hat needs to process. Understanding the technology, its technical requirement, brainstorming on potential applications, diving deeper into specifics to develop a high-level business case, and also thinking about deployment risks and non-ethical uses of the technology that I wouldn't want to see happen. So a comprehensive new process starts to quickly assess the opportunity to build a sustainable product, secure approvals, and resources to execute it. All these need to happen at breakneck speed, as researchers usually have plans to publish and open source their research so others can build on it and further advance science. So as a PM, if you don't move fast enough, other groups will seize the opportunity and you won't build the product. So in our case of PMs working between Deepmind, one of the world's leading research labs, and Google, with its multiple billion user products, we limit complexity by starting with answer to the main questions of who are the users and what is the product. And the way we do that today, bear in mind that we keep iterating on our approach as we go to incorporate new learnings, is to scan the opportunity space. What do users and partners across Google and Alphabet need or want? And the solution space, what promising and incredible technologies are coming out of fundamental research. We then match these two and build prototypes with our engineering and applied research teams. The successful prototypes are then selected to incubate new products in close collaborations with our partner engineering and product teams across Google. The key in this part of the process is really to prioritize ruthlessly to ensure resources are allocated to the most promising bets. Remember that time is of the essence. What you don't build, others will, even if research came out of your lab. One of the main pitfalls for product managers in research is to fall in love with the technology. So PMs are usually naturally curious people who love to go deep into things. That leads some to overinvest their time in understanding the minute details of the research breakthroughs and forget that their teams are counting on them for so many other things that can seem mundane, but are equally critical to overall success. As much as you might enjoy debating with technical folks on their approach, you should try to avoid losing sight of your own role and how it differs from other capabilities that are necessary for overall success. Falling short of doing that will negatively impact your team. So knowing one's scope and focus area is the reason why we regularly revisit this slide, which lays out what we think we are responsible for as PMs. It's quite aligned with multiple other frameworks you probably have seen elsewhere. So first, the PM is an analyst. They know the product and its users. And so they're the expert on the product and the technology. They know the competitive landscape and the ecosystem. They know the data inside out, and they drive curiosity and honesty around numbers. It's really important here to engage with users and be a user, know their issues and build empathy with your users. Second, the PM is a strategist. They create a vision and they set the strategy. They bring clarity and excitement, and they build connections across roles and groups to facilitate strategic decision-making. They champion the team and let others shine. Third, the PM is a communicator. They connect internally and externally. You need to create a compelling and unique vision of the future. You need to craft the story, why it's important, its impact, set a strategy for competitive differentiation, and tell this story over and over again. Last, the PM is an owner. They drive execution forward. They set OKRs, project cadence, with calm and urgency. They anticipate and unblock teams on all fronts, and they own the product experience and set a quality bar. They also contribute to selling and supporting the first customers and pitch in where needed, in design, in marketing, in sales. And so at this point, it's important to remember that behind the name PM, there are very different types of roles that can hide. So PMs come in very different flavors that depend on who their users are. For example, is it consumer? Is it B2B? Is it internal tools? What environment they operate in? Is it research? Is it hardware? Is it consumer? What maturity stage is their product at? Is it early versus mature versus end of life? And so it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all role. However, the skills required across all these various flavors overlap quite a lot. And it is not only possible, but also incredibly rewarding to move between one and the other during careers. As a PM, your role also evolves as your product goes through its life cycle. You will draw on different parts of the PM skill set depending on the phase you're on. And always remember the pitfalls we mentioned of spending time in the wrong area. It can also happen here as your product evolves and you don't. For example, if you enjoy vision type work, you might get less excited about the maintain phase. And so your product will suffer from that, and your team will definitely feel that. They will question your leadership, and you might end up losing them. Your users will definitely feel that, and your product will end up suffering. So a piece of advice here is to know what type of stage excites you, and make sure to have transition plans for when you might not be the best person to drive the team anymore. Your team will greatly appreciate that. Your users too. As we discussed earlier, for research PM, it's very easy to focus on the technology and look forward to apply it. It's a common pitfall that can lead to certain failure in many cases. PMs should own the problem space, not the solution space. Your focus is on the customer, experience, and user pain points. And once you have a good grasp of those, you will work backwards to the technology. Otherwise, you're just a hammer looking for nails. And have probably been guilty of being in awe at new breakthroughs and underestimating the effort required to turn those into a product. It's probably obvious to many, but a product is not just the technology. It's much more than that. In the case of the example I shared with you around our energy savings work with Google's data centers team, our product was not just RL applied to cooling. It included an understanding of the environment and an integration into existing workflows, as well as very detailed thoughts put into continuous improvement and data gathering. So framing the problem you're trying to solve will help you. In our energy savings case, we wanted to increase energy efficiency of industrial systems, not just apply a specific RL algorithm. We figured out that there were many problems to solve before we could get to using our technology. Things like partner selection, data quality, legal and commercial negotiations, financial sustainability of the product, internal priorities, competitive landscape, were all problems that the PM needed to own and solve first. To do that, the PM starts by developing a strategy during the planning phase. They're trying to find the sweet spot between technical feasibility, business viability, and human desirability. So questions to always ask yourself are, does my product solve the user's problem? Can we build it? And is it sustainable? Once that product vision and strategy is compelling enough for executives to fund it, the PM shifts gears to developing their product and launching it. They set metrics and track them. They coordinate resources, communicate to their teams and sponsors. They also keep planning and adjusting to new data points. The PM can really be both the glue that keeps everything together and the engine that powers the team forward in close collaboration with other functions. That collaborative approach helps PMs move their products through the life cycle according to a well-planned roadmap. And you might have seen examples of this perfectly oiled machine that many organizations strive for to ensure effective product development. However, reality is not always a straight line, and multiple surprises happen. Be ready for those. If the saying, God is laughing at your plans, is true, then product managers must be well placed on the list of entertainment providers. Still, one of the most important areas to master for a PM is effective collaboration. PMs are ultimately accountable for the impact they deliver, but they need the support and alignment of multiple functions that they do not manage directly to succeed. They also need to interact with groups outside their company to set their product up for success. There are multiple talks and writings from brilliant PMs that touch on best practices around influencing without authority. Product managers deal with constant change that impact their markets, companies, teams, and themselves. They need to continuously adjust and figure out a path to transformational impact despite those challenges. New technologies can displace their product. New regulatory environments can negatively impact their vision. Company priorities can shift and jeopardize their plans. Team members can leave to join other ventures or get demotivated. The PM themselves also change as they grow, develop, and look for other challenges. It is important to be conscious of this change and adapt accordingly. So in summary for this section about product management, I wanted to leave you with 5 key points. One is there are many types of PMs depending on your environment, and they're all equally rewarding roles. So it's important to know which one you are or prefer and adjust to optimize your chances of success. Second, always focus on the problem, not the solution. That is where you will optimize the value you bring to the team and your product. Third, take ownership, set goals, and drive execution. Your team, leadership, and users will be grateful for that. Fourth, focus on building a collaborative team environment, including outside stakeholders. And always remember that you can go fast alone, but you will go farther and maybe faster with others. 5, remember that it is a journey and that learning, growth, and development are the reward to optimize for. So what machine learning enables you to do as product people and entrepreneurs is to automate, augment, and create new user experiences. You can see these in Google Translate, in Smart Reply, and assistant-type experiences at Google. So here I'm going to talk about a few, what our team, Deepmind for Google, does, which is applying cutting-edge research and using Google to apply it at scale to real-world challenges. And so this creates this virtual circle where we apply research to products that benefit billions of users, and then take those learnings to further advance research too. WaveNet is one of our great collaborations with Google. WaveNet is a deep generative model using CNNs, convolutional neural nets, of raw audio waveforms. The model basically predicts audio samples. It's a DeepMind technology able to generate speech which mimics any human voice and which sounds more natural than the best existing text-to-speech systems. It reduced the gap with human performance by 50%. WaveNet is a lot closer to being a human-like voice than any previous versions of text-to-speech systems. WaveNet models the underlying raw audio to create a more natural voice. It is closer to how humans speak. The pitch, the pace, and even all the pauses that convey meaning are included. With this, we can use anyone's voice if we have sample of the person speaking. Hence the need to be very careful on applications. And the story of this research breakthrough on acoustics models and how it made it to Google Assistant in 1 year, thanks to engineering work and partnerships with product teams, is pretty amazing. It went from 19 minutes to generate 1 minute of voice to just seconds, and is now used within multiple Google products and also actually outside. It's powering companies outside Google through Google Cloud, and it's inspiring use cases for speech-impaired people. It's also currently experimenting with music generation with stunning results and could be used to generate audiobooks. This is one of these use cases of which you can read about, where the team has helped someone who's lost their voice find it again. It's pretty impressive. I wanted to talk to you about healthcare use cases. Healthcare is an area where we've done a lot of work, especially in the early detection of blinding eye disease. So we looked at in healthcare, there's a lot of data and many tasks require analyzing that data. Our team focused on ophthalmology to help combat eye loss linked to diabetic retinopathy. And the diagnosis of retinal disease is actually extremely hard. And the new gold standard for analyzing it is a scanner called an OCT, but it requires specialist interpretation, and there are not that many specialists. And so what our team thought about was to build a model to triage urgent patients successfully, enabling those with sight-threatening disease to be treated as soon as possible, because any delay in treatment leads to actually losing eyesight. And here you can see that the algorithm matches accuracy of ophthalmologists with 20+ years of experience. In this set, you see the results on 1,000 patients, and you see that the algorithm performed equivalently to or better than the experts who participated. There are similar examples came from radiotherapy, which is a cancer treatment that uses high doses of radiation to kill cancer cells and shrink tumors. It's used in the treatment of over 40% of cancers and requires a lot of planning to segment the areas to be treated, meaning that you try to send the treatment only to the areas that need to be treated so that you don't kill the cells that are around it. And planning is currently performed manually and takes 3 to 4 hours per case as a result. In the UK, for example, no hospital meets the 60-day target to provide treatment. We thought that applying algorithmic segmentation could significantly reduce time to treatment. And we were extremely happy and delighted to see that it actually did, and that performance of algorithm was similar to that of humans, but is incredibly faster, right? Which solves the problem that we wanted to solve. Let's see. This is another. So the previous examples were of medical imaging. This is looking at AKI, which is acute kidney injury. And so we worked with one of the UK hospital as well as a US hospital system to try to predict acute kidney injury, which is a disease that you can get in a hospital and die of it, right? And what this graph shows is that our algorithm was able to detect AKI, acute kidney injury, 48 hours before it happens, sending then a signal to the doctor so that they treat the patient and save lives. Let us now move to the energy and industrial space, which we touched on a bit before. So this is the example of the data center energy optimization work that we have done. And so just like in Atari or AlphaGo, you can mathematically formulate the operation of physical infrastructure as an optimization problem. If you think about it, in Atari, the actions are your joystick controls, left, right, up, down, and others. In data centers, we have actions like which equipment you turn on, how many of them do you turn on, what the temperature and pressure set points are associated with the equipment. These are the functions typically provided by supervisory process controls. So in Atari, the environment and observations are quantified in terms of pixels, RGB values, and in data centers, the environment is quantified in terms of sensor data, including power meters, voltage, current sensors, temperature, pressure sensors, flow meters, weather data, etc. So we can use these to learn and train our model. And so as you remember, it's like incredibly complex, right? Like because it's industrial systems that have multiple configuration of settings that can get to like billions of states. And humans aren't good at solving that level of complexity, but remember that AI is. And so working with Google's data centers team, we're able to improve cooling by 30%. And this is a fully autonomous system now, where the team solved for high levels of complexity. This work introduced us to the energy field. It's a risk that is very high in terms of near future, is of course the risk from climate emergencies. And you might have seen current images from Canada and other places. And Hugo mentioned how it's raining in Paris in July. In the past 20 years, 90% of all natural hazards were related to climate emergencies. Hurricanes, cyclones, droughts, floods. It's incredibly challenging problem for humanity. So we moved to Google's wind farms, where we improved the value of wind energy by 20% through ML-powered pricing predictions. Why is it important? It's because renewables make less money because they are less predictable than fossil fuels. But the good news is that AI is really good at prediction. And so Google renewable buyers came up to us asking if we could help improve predictability and profitability of their wind farms. It's really, really exciting that renewable energy is now the same price or cheaper than coal in over 30 developed countries without the subsidies anymore. The complexity comes from actually integrating it into the grid, and that's where technology can help. So reflecting on these experiences, we believe that this is just the beginning with a lot to still grasp and understand. But we're already seeing some important learnings from our experiments. One is that real-world experiments versus virtual worlds, like there is complexity and poor tech in industry, so there are challenges to work on. Then the business models are also not quite figured out. AI is not really a magic tool, but it helps massively to improve, augment, and automate things. And last, not all industries will see the same pace of adoption. It depends on the attractiveness, which includes the addressable market, digitization level, for which you need data, regulation, value change, and just benefits to humanity. So with that, I hope that you enjoyed this overview of a research organization, of Deepmind's history, what a PM is, and how product managers can bring value to research organizations, and then a deep dive into some of the use cases that we've had spanning healthcare, energy, industrials, and Google products. I'd love to answer any questions that you might have.
Mehdi, je re-switch en français pour nos auditeurs. Je pense qu'on a, dans tous les cas, on a des deux. Je pense que tout le monde a bien compris au tout. Mais moi, pour être honnête aussi, je suis plus à l'aise sur le français. Donc, si ça ne pose pas de problème, on peut finir comme ça. En tout cas, c'était hyper intéressant. Je pense que c'est une vidéo qui pourrait être aussi suite en rediff. Moi, j'ai appris pas mal de choses. Si on veut en savoir un peu plus sur Deepmind et les différents projets que tu nous as présentés, on peut les retrouver sur le site de Deepmind.
Oui, exactement. Alors, deepmind.com. Et donc, on a un blog, vous avez où on publie les dernières nouvelles de la recherche et des applications aussi. Il y a aussi la page des carrières pour ceux qui sont intéressés de voir les différents types de rôles qui existent dans l'organisation. Donc, effectivement, deepmind.com. On a aussi Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. si vous voulez nous suivre ailleurs.
Ok, n'hésitez pas à aller voir ça. Et petite question du coup de ma part, on a vu, et c'est quand même assez incroyable, ces deux technos peuvent vraiment s'appliquer sur tous les secteurs et sur des secteurs très très variés comme tu nous l'as montré. Toi, quelle est ta vision un peu sur l'avenir du coup par rapport à tout ça? Est-ce que tu penses que c'est des technos qui vont vraiment se généraliser ou est-ce que tu as un petit avis là-dessus?
Oui, oui, c'est la raison pour laquelle beaucoup de gens travaillent dans ce domaine. En effet, il y a il y a différentes modalités. Donc, il y a beaucoup des exemples que j'ai présentés sont liés à la vision, en fait, à la capacité des ordinateurs à reconnaître des objets. Il y en a aussi certains qui viennent du langage et on voit beaucoup plus d'avancées dans le langage. Il y a énormément d'autres domaines pour l'intelligence artificielle. L'intelligence artificielle, c'est la capacité d'une machine à mimiquer un petit peu le comportement humain. Donc, tous les sens, en fait, la vision, le langage, la planification. Et plus on a de données, plus les ordinateurs sont puissants et plus ce qu'ils arrivent à faire est assez incroyable. Et donc, oui, il y a une accélération en réalité et de la recherche et des applications. Et comme tu disais, Hugo, c'est horizontal, donc ça touche plusieurs verticales industrielles. Et il y a énormément de secteurs qui bénéficient de ça. Si on regarde, par exemple, juste avec avec la pandémie, nous, notre algorithme de reconnaissance, de prédiction de la forme d'une protéine a tout de suite donné la forme de la protéine du Covid hyper vite, alors que par le passé, il aurait fallu essayer de la cristalliser, regarder, etc. Donc, oui, on vit une époque.
Parce que là, du coup, parce que là, on se base du coup sur toutes les données qu'on avait déjà et on est parti en gros avec un niveau d'avance plutôt que si on avait lancé les algorithmes juste maintenant, c'est ça?
Voilà, c'est ça. C'est qu'on on entraîne en fait tous ces algorithmes. Par exemple, dans la vision, on entraîne l'algorithme à reconnaître un chat et un chien. Puis après, on dit, en fait, il y a aussi un guépard. Et du coup, on lui dit, ça, c'est un guépard. Et comme il s'est appris, il dit, ok, ça, c'était un chat, ça, c'est un chien, ça, c'est un guépard. Puis après, on rajoute des choses au-dessus.
Donc, on peut vraiment imaginer que plus on va avancer, plus on aura de données, plus les algos vont être performants et on pourra faire de choses avancer.
Exactement. Plus on avance, plus on a des données, plus du coup les résultats sont très bons. Et aussi, il y a de plus en plus de gens qui s'intéressent à ce domaine. Et donc, il y a des nouvelles architectures d'algorithmes qui sont aussi introduites et qui permettent d'avoir des performances encore plus élevées. C'est un cercle vertueux qui s'accélère.
Eh bien, écoute, on a hâte du coup de voir à quoi le futur va ressembler. Je crois qu'on n'a pas de questions, on n'a pas d'autres questions dans le chat. Si jamais vous voyez cette vidéo en rediff, n'hésitez pas à quand même vos commentaires dans le chat, dans les commentaires, on y répondra. Mehdi, si jamais on veut te contacter, est-ce que tu peux te trouver sur LinkedIn?
Ouais, carrément.
Ok, LinkedIn, et puis n'hésitez pas à aller visiter du coup le site de Deepmind que je peux vous envoyer dans le chat. Hop. Pour en savoir plus. En tout cas, un grand merci Mehdi pour cette présentation. C'était hyper intéressant d'avoir. Nous, on est vraiment sur cette partie marketing et on est moins au courant du coup de toutes ces avancées et je trouve que c'est passionnant et du coup un grand merci du coup pour la présentation. Et puis à la prochaine.
Merci Hugo, c'était un plaisir de présenter un petit peu certains de nos projets. Merci pour l'invitation. Merci à tous. Bonne journée. Au revoir.
Bonne journée à tous. Au revoir.